Josephine Blackwood clutched her worn carpet bag, veil secured tightly across her face. Blackwood Creek, Montana, emerged from the mist like a watercolor painting. Smudged buildings bleeding into wilderness. Inside the Stagecoach Inn, curious eyes tracked her veiled figure. The innkeeper's wife served tea with deliberate clumsiness, amber liquid splashing across Joe's sleeve. As she jerked back, fabric rode up, revealing the distinctive growths marring her skin. Gasps rippled through the dining room. A child's voice pierced the silence. "Mama, what's wrong with her face?" Joe retreated to her rented room. The lock's click familiar as breathing. Miles away, Ethan Morgan loaded supplies into his wagon, muscles moving with mechanical precision. Martha Jenkins eyed him from behind the general store counter, noting the silver threading his dark hair, the beard that couldn't hide cheekbones, sharpened by grief. "That monster woman who arrived on today's stage," Martha began. "Not my concern," Ethan's voice rasped from disuse. Lightning cracked the sky as he finished loading. His horses reared, terrified, wagon splintering against the hitching post. Damn it all. He stared at the broken wheel as rain pelted his shoulders. No choice but the inn. First night in town since Sarah died. In the narrow hallway, a collision, his solid frame against a smaller figure. Papers scattered from her hands, sketches of mountains and trees. Through her partial veil, one brown eye met his, neither flinching from the other's appearance. "Pardon me," she murmured, gathering her drawings. Morning brought new trouble. From his window, Ethan watched 3 men corner the veiled woman in the alley beside the inn. "We don't want your kind here," one snarled, grabbing her arm. Something long dormant stirred in Ethan, the captain who'd once commanded men. Before conscious thought, he stood between them, voice steady. "Step back." Later, loading her small bag into his repaired wagon, he established boundaries with practiced precision. Caretaker's cabin, temporary, until you sort out where you're headed. Joe nodded, understanding temporary sanctuary when offered. "Thank you, Mr. Morgan." Ethan. The correction surprised him. Names meant connection. Connection meant pain. Willow Creek Ranch emerged through thinning rain, fences sagging like his shoulders, outbuildings neglected as his heart. The small cabin stood apart from the main house, like him, functional but isolated. "It's not much," he said unnecessarily. "It's shelter," Joe replied, one brown eye holding his gaze through her veil. Sometimes that's enough to start. Something in her quiet dignity made Ethan look away first, uncomfortable recognition flickering between 2 souls accustomed to being unwelcome. Hers by appearance, his by choice. 3 weeks of careful avoidance established their rhythms. Joe emerged from her cabin only when Ethan's tall figure disappeared across distant pastures. Ethan timed his movements with similar precision, maintaining the isolation grief had taught him to crave. November frost painted silver across dying grass. Ethan's breath clouded as he checked fence posts, his fingers stiff with cold. Something on the porch rail caught his eye. A small wooden bird, details so precise he could count individual feathers. Yesterday, he'd found a rabbit near the garden, the day before a fox by the woodpile. He tracked footprints to the ancient cottonwood. Joe sat beneath it, gloved hands moving deftly across a piece of pine. Knife, creating delicate curves where none existed before. She hadn't noticed him, her veil set aside in presumed solitude. The growths across her right cheek and jaw transformed her profile into landscape, valleys and ridges that pulled her features into geography rather than grotesquerie. Not monstrous, he realized with surprise. Simply different. You made these? His voice startled her. She reached for her veil, but he shook his head. Don't. Jo lowered her hand, uncertainty in her exposed face. I wanted to repay your kindness. Not necessary. Creating beauty is always necessary. Her knife continued shaping wood, transforming raw material into possibility, especially when the world sees only ugliness. Something in her words struck uncomfortable chord, recognition of his own transformation from vital rancher to hollow shell, ugliness turned inward rather than displayed. Sheriff Hayes' arrival interrupted this moment of connection. Town's concerned about your guest, he said, eyeing the cabin, especially with that medicine show setting up. My land, my business. Ethan's response was automatic, territorial. That night, heavy snow collapsed part of the caretaker's cabin roof. Ethan found Jo shivering beside her small stove, possessions hastily salvaged. Kitchen's warm, he offered, gruffly, until repairs. The kitchen became neutral territory, Jo cooking meals he'd neglected, Ethan surprised by hunger he'd forgotten to feel. Her movements were efficient, despite limitations, adapting tasks to accommodate her affected hand with pragmatic acceptance that made his own grief seem suddenly self-indulgent. One evening, he noticed her hand stiffening with cold as she kneaded dough. Without comment, he built up the fire, then disappeared upstairs. He returned with worn leather gloves. My wife's, he said, offering them awkwardly. Sarah's might help. Jo stared at the gloves, understanding the significance of this first acknowledgement of his loss. Thank you. Their fingers brushed during the exchange, brief contact that lingered like warmth after flame is extinguished. Neither acknowledged the moment, but something shifted between them. Reluctant recognition that beneath grief and difference, two humans remained, capable of seeing beyond surface to substance hidden below. That night, Ethan dreamed of Sarah for the first time in months, not dying as usual, but smiling, her hand outstretched toward something he couldn't quite see. December brought bone-deep cold that demanded cooperation. The western fence required immediate repair, cattle already testing weakened posts. I need an extra pair of hands, Ethan admitted reluctantly over breakfast. Jo nodded, already reaching for Sarah's gloves, now officially hers, through unspoken agreement. I'm stronger than I look. In the brittle cold, they established wordless rhythm, Ethan holding posts steady, while Jo secured wire. Her technique unconventional, but effective. When traditional knots proved difficult for her affected hand, she demonstrated alternative method learned during carnival days. Holds better anyway, Ethan observed, studying her adaptation with newfound respect. Their bodies found natural synchrony in shared labor, breaths clouding and matching rhythm. By sunset, something had shifted. Partnership established beyond mere landlord and unwelcome tenant. Town brought harsher reality. The medicine show tent dominated the square, Doctor. Abernathy's booming voice carrying across frozen ground. Protection from contagion. Safeguard your families from unnatural afflictions. Inside the general store, Martha's expression warned Ethan before words were necessary. They're planning something against her tonight. Riding home, snow crunched beneath hooves, the sound amplifying tension building in Ethan's chest. He found Jo packing her meager belongings, face resigned behind her partial veil. You don't need to leave, he said, surprising himself with the firmness in his voice. I've seen this before. Joe folded a carved figure into cloth. It always ends the same. Not this time. Why risk yourself for a stranger? Ethan considered the question, finding unexpected truth. You're not a stranger anymore. Their tentative new understanding found witness when Sam Williams appeared the following day, his familiar voice booming across the yard. "Morgan, you look like hell warmed over." Ethan felt a rusty smile crack his features as they clasped hands. Sam's presence bridged past and present. The only visitor who'd known him before grief hollowed his eyes. Sam's initial startled glance at Joe's unveiled face quickly gave way to straightforward introduction, offering hand without hesitation. "Sam Williams, any friend of this surly bastard is friend of mine." Later, wolves threatened the winter herd. The three worked seamlessly through blizzard conditions, protecting vulnerable calves from predators. Around the kitchen fire afterward, exhaustion dissolved final barriers. "I worked the carnival circuit 5 years," Joe admitted, fingers tracing patterns on her mug. "The beast woman of Bavaria, though I've never been east of Chicago." Sarah wanted children, Ethan responded, surprising himself by speaking her name aloud. 3, at least, said this valley needed more laughter. Sam watched this exchange with knowing eyes, recognition of healing beginning beneath scars, both visible and hidden. When he departed days later, his parting words lingered. "Sarah would approve, you know." The statement hung between Ethan and Joe after Sam's wagon disappeared, acknowledgement of unspoken possibility neither had allowed themselves to consider, that broken pieces might still fit together into something whole, not despite their damaged edges, but because of how perfectly those edges aligned. Early spring sunshine streamed through newly washed windows as Joe moved through the main house, her presence no longer temporary arrangement, but established fact. Dust cloths disappeared from furniture untouched since Sarah's death, rooms reclaiming purpose beyond shrine to memory. In town, more ominous changes occurred. Dr. Abernathy's voice carried across the square as Ethan collected mail. $50 reward for information leading to Josephine Blackwood, medical curiosity formerly exhibited throughout the Eastern Circuit. Ethan's spine stiffened, protective instinct flaring with unexpected intensity. That evening, Joe ventured into the attic during spring cleaning, discovering violin case tucked beneath rafters. Curiosity led her fingers to dusty strings, a muscle memory from carnival orchestras guiding the bow and haunting melody that filled the silent house. Ethan appeared in the doorway, face thunderous. "Put that down." "I'm sorry," Joe whispered, returning the instrument to its case. "I didn't mean—" "It was Samuel's, my brother." Grief roughened his voice. "Before the war took him." Instead of retreating, Joe held his gaze. "Music helped me survive after my mother sent me away, when the carnival crowds were cruel. It reminds us beauty exists, even when we can't see it." Something shifted in Ethan's expression, recognition of shared understanding that transcended different wounds. "Play it again," he said finally, the request costing visible effort. Her melody filled spaces between them, bridging separate isolations with invisible connection neither could yet name. Their fragile new understanding faced immediate threat when horses' hooves pounded into the yard the following afternoon. 5 men from town dismounted, faces grim beneath hat brims. "Morgan," their leader called, "we're here about the monster woman, for your own good." Ethan positioned himself between them and the house, hand resting casually near his holstered revolver. "She has a name." Dr. Abernathy's carriage arrived behind the townsman, the medicine man's cultivated voice carrying across tense silence. I'm prepared to compensate you generously, Mr. Morgan, for returning her to appropriate care. She's not property to be sold, Ethan replied, each word precise as bullets. That night, lamplight pooled in the kitchen as they assessed limited options. Joe's fingers traced wood grain on the table, her uncovered face showing vulnerability she'd ceased hiding in his presence. You've already risked too much, she said softly. My choice to make. Why? The question hung between them, demanding truth Ethan hadn't fully acknowledged, even to himself. Before he could answer, smoke scent drifted through open window. Flames illuminated night sky as the stable caught fire. Clear warning from town. They worked seamlessly together, saving horses and containing flames. Soot streaked Joe's face, temporarily masking her distinctive features, while firelight revealed determination, replacing Ethan's grief-carved emptiness. In the fire's aftermath, dawn breaking over smoldering timbers, something ignited between them. Recognition that passive defense against hostility couldn't succeed long-term. Ethan's hand found hers, calloused fingers intertwining with scarred ones. We faced them together, on our terms. The declaration marked resurrection of the man he'd been before loss, one who engaged rather than withdrew, who fought for what mattered rather than merely surviving what remained. Joe's fingers tightened around his, strength matching strength. Together. Reverend Wilson's invitation arrived by messenger, an opportunity to discuss the situation at the church. Joe's fingers trembled slightly as she traced the paper's edge. We don't have to go, Ethan said, watching her reaction carefully. Hiding hasn't served me well before. Joe selected her finest carved pieces, a deer family, intricate birds in flight, a perfect miniature horse. These might speak where words fail. The church smelled of beeswax and old hymnals. Reverend Wilson's discomfort showed in his fidgeting hands, theological training warring with community pressure. Your presence has caused concern, he began. Joe unwrapped her carvings, placing them on the pulpit. May I show you something, Reverend? His fingers hovered over the exquisite detail, each feather distinct, eyes seeming almost alive. You made these? Beauty exists alongside difference, she said quietly. One doesn't negate the other. Though visibly conflicted, he nodded slowly. Perhaps there's wisdom in that perspective. Martha Jenkins provided more practical support, her weathered face creasing with disgust at town gossip. Nonsense and foolishness, she declared, arranging supplies in Ethan's wagon, as if condition were catching. Been near you months, Ethan. Notice any growths lately? Her matter-of-fact approach created foundation for their strategy. Systematic engagement with community influencers, beginning with those most likely to overcome prejudice. Unexpected breakthrough came through children's curiosity. During Joe's visit to the general store, Martha's grandchildren appeared with friends, fascination overcoming fear, as Joe demonstrated simple carving techniques. Does it hurt? A small girl asked, pointing to Joe's face. Sometimes, Joe answered honestly, but less than unkindness. This innocent interaction caught Dr. Abernathy off guard, undermining his narrative of danger as children's questions revealed humanity behind difference. At Willow Creek Ranch, another transformation unfolded. Shared meals extended into evening conversations beside the hearth, physical awareness growing between Ethan and Joe. despite neither acknowledging changing dynamic. Spring storms brought dangerous flooding along the creek dividing the ranch. After moving livestock to higher ground, they found themselves stranded on the far side as darkness fell, forced to seek shelter in the line shack. Rain drummed against the roof as they huddled near the small stove, close enough that Joe felt warmth radiating from Ethan's body. "I've been afraid," he admitted into the darkness, "that caring for someone new somehow dishonors Sarah's memory. And I've been certain your interest stems from pity rather than—" Joe couldn't finish. His hand found hers in the shadows. Not pity, never that. The honest exchange created foundation for possibility beyond partnership they'd established, connection based on recognition rather than despite difference. Morning light revealed flooded creek still impassable, but also Dr. Abernathy's escalation. Handbills distributed throughout town describing Joe as escaped medical curiosity, whose condition threatened community health. Ethan's jaw tightened as he read the false claims. This ends now. His determination matched her own rising resolve, external threat, crystallizing commitment to defending each other's dignity, regardless of how their personal relationship evolved. "Yes," Joe agreed, her hand still warm from his touch. "It does." The town hall's wooden benches creaked under the weight of Blackwood Creek's residents. Tension hung heavy as storm clouds, broken by whispers that ceased abruptly when Ethan and Joe entered. Her veil was lighter today, present but translucent, a compromise between hiding and confrontation. Dr. Abernathy commanded the makeshift stage, his silver hair catching lamplight, voice modulating between concern and authority. "The condition affects the nervous system progressively," he declared, gesturing to anatomical charts. "Early symptoms include moral degradation and erratic behavior." Martha Jenkins rose, her compact frame somehow expanding with indignation. "And your medical credentials come from where exactly, Doctor?" Before Abernathy could respond, Reverend Wilson stood, reluctance warring with conviction on his youthful face. "Scripture teaches us to see beyond physical appearance to the soul within." The medicine man recovered quickly. "Indeed, Reverend, Christian charity is admirable from a safe distance. My tonics provide protection for those compelled to interact with such unfortunates." The cynical pivot toward profit revealed his true motivation, creating ripple of uncertainty through the crowd. The meeting's momentum shifted dramatically when Amy Peterson, daughter of Abernathy's strongest supporter, approached Joe, offering small wooden figure she'd attempted to carve. "It's not as good as yours," the child said simply. Joe knelt to examine the crude horse, wonder transforming her features. "It's perfect," she replied, loud enough for all to hear. "You saw what it could be, not just what it was." This innocent exchange crystallized the moral choice facing the community: profit from fear or embrace understanding. Though many remained unconvinced, sufficient support emerged to prevent immediate threat. After the meeting, Abernathy cornered Ethan outside. $500, he offered smoothly, for exclusive exhibition rights, quite generous for a failing ranch. Ethan's response came with military precision, a single punch that laid the charlatan in the street dust. "She's not yours to buy, or mine to sell." Their return to Willow Creek Ranch marked decisive shift. As spring warmth coaxed wildflowers from soil, something new blossomed between them. Joe's artistic talents expanded from small carvings to furniture filling gaps in the home Ethan had neglected after Sarah's death. A rocking chair appeared on the porch, not replacing the one Sarah had used, but complementing it. 2 seats now, where one had stood empty. Ethan ran his fingers over the intricate pattern, carved into its arms, intertwined vines that separated, then rejoined, stronger at each connection. It's beautiful. Life leaves marks on all of us, Joe said, standing closer than propriety suggested. Some visible, some hidden. The pattern matters more than the scars. Reverend Wilson's arrival interrupted this moment of near confession. He shifted uncomfortably, hat in hands. The children have questions about Joe's condition. They're curious without fear, Ethan finished. Would you consider speaking with them at the schoolhouse? The request represented crucial choice between continued isolation or vulnerability for greater understanding. Joe's eyes met Ethan's, seeking not permission, but partnership. We'll be there, he answered, his hand finding hers with quiet certainty. 2 people choosing connection, despite risks. Stronger together than apart. Sunlight streamed through schoolhouse windows, illuminating floating dust motes and children's expectant faces. Joe stood before them, veil absent for the first time in public, Ethan a steady presence beside her. Does it hurt? A boy asked, echoing the question the children always wondered first. Sometimes, Joe answered honestly, but less than pretending to be someone I'm not. Her calm explanations about her condition, complemented by demonstration of carving techniques, transformed abstract fear into concrete understanding. When she invited them to try, small hands eagerly accepted wood and dull knives, concentration replacing curiosity. You're not scary, declared Emma Wilson, the Reverend's daughter. You're just different, like Billy's clubfoot or Mrs. Jenkins's missing finger. This innocent reassessment spread beyond the schoolhouse. Several children brought parents to meet Joe properly, creating ripples of changing perception. Martha Jenkins capitalized on this opening by organizing harvest celebration at Willow Creek Ranch, first community gathering on property since Sarah's death. Preparations transformed the once neglected homestead. Lanterns hung from porch railings. Tables appeared beneath cottonwood trees. Joe's carvings decorating spaces once defined by absence. Ethan watched her directing arrangements, struck by the completeness of his transformation. Grief remained, would always remain, but no longer defined his existence. Like land after drought, life had returned gradually then, suddenly, unexpected harvest from barren ground. The celebration faced final challenge when Dr. Abernathy arrived uninvited with traveling photographer, intent on capturing exploitative images for Eastern exhibitions. For medical documentation, he explained smoothly, equipment already assembling. Before Ethan could intervene, Martha stepped directly before the camera, Reverend Wilson beside her. You'll find no spectacle here, she declared, surprisingly strong hands covering the lens. Sheriff Hayes appeared at Abernathy's elbow. Time you moved along, Doctor. Your welcome's expired. This community defense, not universal but sufficient, represented victory more meaningful than a complete acceptance. The celebration continued with mixture of curiosity and cautious interaction. As twilight painted the valley purple and gold, guests departed gradually, leaving Ethan and Joe alone on the porch. Some still stared, she observed, not bitterly, but factually. Some always will. Ethan's hand found hers, calloused fingers intertwining with scarred ones. Doesn't matter as much as who sees beyond that. When you first offered shelter, Joe said softly, I never imagined finding home instead. When Sarah died, I thought that part of life was finished. Ethan's voice held certainty that had replaced grief's hollow echo. You taught me different. Their relationship culminated in marriage that acknowledged rather than erased individual histories. The wedding, held beneath Willow Creek's cottonwoods rather than in church, was attended by community still transforming, some fully accepting, others respectful, if uncomfortable. 1 year later, Jo had established workshop on ranch where her commissioned furniture gained reputation beyond Blackwood Creek. As they hosted Autumn Gathering, Martha observed change in both Ethan and town. They still see her differences, Ethan acknowledged, watching Jo demonstrate techniques to fascinated children. Some do, Martha agreed, but more of them see her. The real victory isn't that they stopped calling her monster, it's that they started using her name. The final image captured Ethan joining Jo among gathered community, their inclusion neither complete nor perfect, but genuine and evolving, testament to possibility that seeing beyond surface to substance transforms not just individual lives, but community itself. In the last light of day, their hands found each other without looking, the gesture unconscious as breathing. Two people who had learned to see clearly in a world too often blinded by surfaces, building home together from broken pieces neither could have mended alone.